You guys are fourth graders? So, alright, so morning class. Today we're going to be learning about narrative writings and also social studies. So today specifically we're going to talk about Frederick Douglass. Does any of you guys know who Frederick Douglass is?
He's that guy.
That guy. Do you know what he did? No, well, just short background. So Frederick Douglass, he was actually an actual slave. So he escaped as a slave, and then he become an activist for the abolition to abolish slavery. So he wrote books, and then in his book he actually talked about his personal story and how he escaped slavery.
Okay, so why don't we give you guys a little bit of time for you guys to go on your Chromebooks and do some research about Frederick Douglass, and we'll come back and see if anybody found any interesting facts about him.
So I have this cool activity. So you guys are gonna be working in partners. So you guys are gonna make a little poster, and it's about Frederick Douglass, and they have multiple little boxes you guys could choose from. I'll pass it out. So for example, some of the boxes will include my origin story, in my own words, 2 words that describe me, challenges and obstacle in my way. So while I hand these out, Tyler, would you like to help me hand some papers out? If you guys want to just go on Google real quick and just or YouTube just to look at facts about Frederick Douglass. And then just one person. Yeah, you have to work hard.
After you. You're welcome.
I'm on it. Thanks, guys.
Tyler, you're the best.
Now, we're going to have you guys working in partners, so I'm going to spread these out.
He's just helping us out.
Okay.
Everybody give Tyler a big hand for helping us.
He's having a stroke.
So you guys don't have to do the research on all of them. If you see one question that you like or something that you want to research about them, you could go ahead. So for example, an important accomplishment. If that intrigues you guys, why don't you guys look that up on what he did, or some challenges or obstacles. What is his obstacles? You want to look that up? So I'll give you guys like 1 to 2 minutes.
See what that is, so I can just...
We don't have the face.
You don't have face?
Caesar wants the face. Can I have another?
Yeah, of course.
Aquí está. El otro no está. Ok, entonces tenemos que escribir.
Okay, has anyone found any information about him that you feel is interesting? Yes.
I did. I found that he taught other slaves how to read.
He taught other slaves how to read. Okay, anything else? Just Yasmin.
He was pro-woman rights.
Pro-woman?
He wanted women to vote.
Okay, good. Maybe
That's
one
very
more?
important.
One more fact? Yes.
He chose his name from a poem.
He chose his name from a poem. Okay, so I'm sure that you guys are having fun researching, and once you guys finish researching, you guys can color him and make your poster. But right now, go ahead and just put this off to the side, and we're gonna actually transition. Kevin is gonna actually read an excerpt from his diary and talk about his life. So while he's passing that out, how many of you guys know what a narrative is? Yes.
It's when you're talking about yourself.
Correct. Yes. So it's about a story about someone or yourself, right? And do you know what words typically you talk in, or what person? Like what point of view?
First.
First person. So what words does that include?
I.
Go together.
Me, mine.
I, me, and mine, right? Good. So as Kevin reads his diary, once you guys hear I, me, or my, can you guys just snap to reinforce that you guys understand?
Every time
As
you hear
first
I or
person?
mine, give us a snap, okay?
So it's like an autobiography?
Correct.
Yes, very good. Autobiographies and narratives are both stories that people write about themselves. And now, would you mind helping finish passing that?
Vamos a leer. Esto. Está en español.
Two things that I want you guys to keep in mind as we're reading. One, because this is a story that Frederick Douglass wrote about himself, try to figure out which parts of the story are facts versus which parts are opinions that he writes about the things in his story. And also, listen for what events about his life that Frederick Douglass talks about that might be similar to what happens in your life. Chapter 1. I was born in Tuckahoe, near Hillsborough, and about 12 miles from Easton in Talbot County, Maryland. I have no accurate knowledge of my age, never having seen any authentic record containing it. By far the larger part of the slaves know as little of their ages as horses know of theirs. And it is the wish of most masters within my knowledge to keep their slaves thus ignorant. I do not remember to have ever met a slave who could tell of his birthday. They seldom come nearer to it than planting time, harvest time, cherry time, springtime, or fall time. A want of information concerning my own was a source of unhappiness to me, even during childhood. The white children could tell their ages. I could not tell why I ought to be deprived of the same privilege. I was not allowed to make any inquiries of my master concerning it. He deemed all such inquiries on the part of a slave improper and impertinent, and evidence of a restless spirit. The nearest estimate I can give makes me now between 27 and 28 years of age. I come to this from hearing my master say sometime during 1835, I was about 17 years old. So, we finally have a number in here that's important to think about. 1835. That is the year when Frederick Douglass was about 17 years old. Do we know anything else that happened in history around that same time? We know that slaves existed. Is there anything big that happened in America because of slaves? This is just a couple decades before the Civil War, a big fight that took place over slavery, of which Frederick Douglass was an important figure in talking to people about it. My mother was named Harriet Bailey. She was the daughter of Isaac and Betsy Bailey, both colored and quite dark. My mother was of a darker complexion than either my grandmother or grandfather. My father was a white man. He was admitted to be such by all I ever heard speak of my parentage. The opinion was also whispered that my master was my father. But of the correctness of this opinion, I know nothing. The means of knowing was withheld from me. My mother and I were separated when I was but an infant, before I knew her as my mother. It is a common custom in the part of Maryland from which I ran away to part children from their mothers at a very early age. Frequently, before the child has reached its 12th month, before it's a year old, its mother is taken away from it and hired out on some farm a considerable distance off, and the child is placed under the care of an old woman too old for field labor. For what this separation is done, I do not know, unless it be to hinder the development of the child's affection toward its mother, and to blunt and destroy the natural affection of the mother for the child. This was the inevitable result. I never saw my mother to know her as such, more than 4 or 5 times in my life, and each of these times was very short in duration and at night. She was hired by a Mr. Stewart who lived 12 miles from my home. She made her journeys to see me in the night, traveling the whole distance on foot after the performance of her day's work. She was a field hand, and a whipping is the penalty of not being in the field at sunrise, unless a slave has special permission from his or her master to the contrary, a permission which they seldom got, and one that gives it the proud name of being a kind master. I do not recollect ever seeing my mother by the light of day. She was with me in the night. She would lie down with me and get me to sleep, but long before I waked, she was gone. Very little communication ever took place between us. Death soon ended what little we could have while she lived, and with it her hardships and suffering. She died when I was about 7 years old on one of my master's farms near Lee's Mill. I was not allowed to be present during her illness, at her death, or burial. She was gone long before I knew anything about it, never having enjoyed to any considerable extent her soothing presence, her tender and watchful care. I received the tidings of her death with much the same emotions I should have probably felt at the death of a stranger. Now, boys and girls, at the beginning of this, the very first chapter that Frederick Douglass writes about his own life and his experiences, he's talked about some things as he's older, but the first big events that he really talks about are those concerning his family. At the beginning, he starts to give some basic details about where and when he is, and then he goes and talks about his family from when he was very little. He starts with his mother, and the next section starts to talk about the question of who his father was. Now, because of time, we're not going to go into that, but one of the things that you can connect in your own stories when you're writing about your life, something that's true for everybody, but it's also different for everybody, is your family. When you go in and start writing your own narrative, think about the structure of how Frederick Douglass chose to write about it. He started off giving some basic facts, and then he went into his beginning, and then he started talking about the first important people in his life. So, when you are writing a narrative, you can choose a couple of different structures. You can talk about problem and solution. Frederick Douglass talks about the problem of slavery existing and what his life included as things to try to be a solution. You can do cause and effect. His mother traveled very far to see him, and maybe that had some effect on why she died, which is very sad. And then you can think about writing in chronological order, which means start at the beginning and work your way by time to the end.
So yeah, so like important things also to include in your narratives, right, are like dialogue and also like the 5 senses. So when he's talking to you guys, he talks about getting whipped, right? So that's how you feel, things that he sees, right? The 5 senses where it is what you see, hear, smell, feel, taste. So you want to make the reader feel like that they're that person, so they could visualize that story or what you're trying to tell them.
Okay, pretty soon we're going to have you guys write your own personal narrative based on some event that happened in your life. But I just wanted to go back and reflect on what we just covered, right? So usually I'm going to cover the basics. As we see, we got a picture of SpongeBob. I don't know if you guys saw that episode. You guys remember when he was having trouble writing an essay? Well, don't worry. We just want you. What happened, right? He just started. All of a sudden, he was building it up, procrastinating, and he just started writing, and he couldn't stop, right? So that's what we're going to ask of you guys. But we're going to say, what's a personal narrative usually written in? First person, okay. And they usually include what kinds of words?
I.
And why is that? Because whose perspective is it from? Yours, right? Okay. And then, so you also want to describe what you were thinking, maybe possibly what you were feeling, who you were with, right? And we got Goofy up there. See, he's had a pretty tough life. He's probably writing about it right now. So we want to describe when and where exactly this was. Like Kevin said, you wanted to set the table. You want to set a setting. You want to let us know where you were at, and what you were doing, right? For example, it was the last game of the basketball tournament when I, as you see, I have it in red and underlined, was in 8th grade. And you want to describe who you were with. So, for example, my basketball team and I made it to the championship game. Okay? And then you also want to build up, like we said, with details to make it juicy. You want it to come alive. For example, there were 4 seconds left. We were down by 2 points, and we had the last possession. I was nervous, but my team trusted me to take the last shot. Okay? And like I said, you want to continue to reel people in. And like this picture, when you're writing, it's like a campfire. You want people to be captivated. You want to have their attention, like you're telling a good story, right? And so we're going to continue to reel in our audience and our readers. So, dodging my defender, I ran as fast as I could past my teammate, who set up a block for me. I caught the pass and took the shot. My heart was racing as I saw the ball swirl around the basket in a moment that seemed to last forever. So as you can see, I'm building up tension here. And I'm saying my heart was racing as I saw the ball swirl around. I'm building a picture for you guys and letting you know how I felt. Okay, and just here it is all together. It was the last game of my basketball tournament when I was in 8th grade. My basketball team and I made it to the championship game. There were 4 seconds left. We were down by 2 points, and we had the last possession. I was nervous, but my team trusted me to take the last shot. Paragraph. Dodging my defender, I ran as fast as I could, and I ran past my teammate, who set up a block for me. I caught the pass and took the shot. My heart was racing as I saw the ball swirl around the basket in a moment that seemed to last forever. So from this point on, right, we know a narrative has a structure. I just set up the beginning of it. So we know it has a conclusion, right? Problem and solution. So what do you guys think probably happened? Since it's probably a tragic, traumatic event that happened in my life. Do you think I made the basket based on this information? No, right? Possibly I missed it.